I do my job. I do my job well. But I don't. I am of the mindset that I am not going to do the extra things just because I'm there.
How do I? And some of these technical issues would lead to this. How do I? In my department, we call major technical issues resume generating experiences,
Yes.
because you'll need to find a new job afterwards. And that's what our how do I is. It's how do I find gainful employment? Um,
If
yeah.
you have an answer to that, I'd like to know. Honest, I mean, it is like anything. There's a certain amount of work that you put into it, and there's also luck. I mean,
Oh
my
yeah.
current position that I have was very much I happened to luck into it. I was working years ago at a Apple retailer, not an Apple store. We were an authorized like reseller because I live in an area that's not population dense enough to have an Apple store. We're not big enough. So I was working there, and I had a friend working at this company. And he's like, "Hey, we got a position opening up. You should, come check it out." And I just had like he had been there for a little bit, and I met with the guy that was doing the hiring, and he and I got hit it off really well, and he was desperate to find somebody pretty quickly. So it was the luck of happening to hit it at the right time. But I had put in work and whatnot to get myself a skill set. So it's how do I find gainful employment is like be in the right place at the right time and just set yourself up for success. What do you want to do? Aim for that, and then keep going. I hate job hunting. It is
Yep.
easily top 3 of my least favorite things in the world, is hunting for a job because I'm terrible at selling myself to begin with. And then, every time you do an interview, it can just be the worst thing. The worst interview I ever did was 2004. I applied for a job at Electronic Arts. It was EA Tiburon location in Orlando, Florida. And it was just a QA tester. Simple job. It had a phone interview. It had a second stage, which was an in-person interview. And then there was a third interview that was basically in front of a triumvirate. Like you walked into a room and there were 3 people sitting behind a table. And you got interviewed by all 3 of them at the same time. And that was top 5 worst experiences of my life, was that particular interview, especially when they ended with "tell us a joke." I'm like, oh, come on. Like, seriously, I can't just tell you it was awful, but like that kind of stuff, or having to play the game. I'm to a point now where I don't play the game anymore. If I can find a job that will let me be me, great. And I've run out of caring about putting on the show anymore.
Yeah. Well, and I've also found, because I I have a job, it pays decently well, and I've been applying for new positions. I'm currently going through that right now. Because it never hurts to, even if you're happy with how much you make and happy with your job, it never hurts to look at what's out there and see the
Oh,
potential.
absolutely.
But I've been applying for jobs and whatnot, and I had, you and I were talking before the show. I had a second round interview,
Mhm.
and I've been going into this the whole time of, they need to sell me on the job, to be honest,
Yeah.
because I like my team, I like what I do right now, and if they're not willing to step up and sell me the position, even if they offer it to me, I'm going to say no. If they don't, if it's not what I want, and I've
Yeah.
done that before too. Like, um, this was 2021. I got offers a position, um, with a name brand place.
Mhm.
I'm not going to say who, but it, even at my current salary 5 years later, I would have been making $30,000 more than what I'm currently making, is what the job offer was. But there were some seriously bad vibes during the interview process. And they also did a bait and switch on me as well, because I
Oh.
applied for one position and they offered me a position lower than what I had applied for.
Mm.
And um, the salary that they offered was $20,000 less than what the other position's lowest range would have been. So
Yeah, I don't like that.
they did a bait and switch. They There were some serious red flags during the interview process, and ultimately I was like, I even though I'd be making more money, no, no, thank you.
Yeah. And, I say this too, and I know I'm saying some of this from like a place of privilege where I do have a job that does pay me well enough, and I do enjoy it for the most part, and I like my coworkers. So, like,
Mhm.
I do have that privileged position to be in where I can be selective. Like, I have also
Yep.
been on the other end of that spectrum, which is I don't have a job
I need a job.
and I need a job now, or I have nowhere to live. Like, that's how I ended up doing professional carpet cleaning for us, a while, and driving a taxi cab. Like,
Yep.
these types of jobs that I've done, and I learned a lot doing them, but they were jobs of desperation, not of, that was the I got to put food on the table. Um,
Yep.
and
Well,
I like being in the position I'm in now, where I can be a lot more selective. I will
and
say that.
nowadays the job hunting environment is just so bad, because even you don't know if what you're applying for is even a real job half the time, because
Hmm.
there are a lot of companies that will post jobs just to say that they're hiring, even if there's not a real job
Yeah.
there. Or I've seen companies who have blatantly said, we're posting this just to see what kind of people we would get if we were to post this type of job in the future.
Yeah.
And they actually even sometimes do it to, they'll they'll tweak the job description to see what the candidates would look like at the different one before they even, like,
Yeah. It's
they're refining it until they find what they want to post.
Mhm.
um and my current work is really the company is really predatory when it comes to making sure that your job title is they spend so much time researching job titles specifically so that they can say, we are paying you a fair market rate for your job title,
Mhm.
but then they expect you to do so much more stuff that someone with that job title would not be expected to do. So, like, oh, you're an an application support person instead of a software engineer, because software engineer has a higher expectation of salary and things.
Yeah.
And they play those games so that they can honestly say that they are paying people competitively for their
Yeah.
job title.
Yeah,
And
and that goes to, like, what I was saying, that's the game that I hate, that I don't wanna
yep,
play. And so, like, I do my job. I do my job well. But I don't, I am of the mindset that I am not going to do the extra things, just because I'm there. Um,
yep,
because that's not part of my job. Now, will I help certain people? Yes, there are those that I will help. But life's too short to be like running yourself into the ground
yep,
over, the pennies that especially large companies and large corporations. My company's fairly middle sized, so it's not quite as bad. But I see some of these, and it's even worse when you look at, a big corporation that has all the way down to low wage workers, and the way that those get treated. And that's the kind of stuff that really drives me absolutely batty. Is, a company that makes billions of dollars in revenue a year, and yeah, you've got a lot of employees in a lot of locations, but you can take care of those employees, and you should, and not treat them
yep,
like a disposable commodity, because we're not, at the end of the day.
yep, yep. But yeah, yeah. So Unfortunately, with the current environment, if you're looking for gainful employment, you are. I think the last statistic I heard was you can expect to get one interview for roughly every 100 applications that you put in.
Yeah, it
Is
feels
what
about right.
the current environment is, and so you gotta cast a wide net, and you never know what's going to stick. Like my current job, I when I looked at the application, I'm like, this is such a weird spread of skills. I'm like, they're not going to find anyone that has that weird set of skills because
Yeah.
it was so far apart from what a normal job progression would look like. And I looked at it and I'm like, I meet about 75 to 80% of this. And I went in knowing they're not going to find anyone more qualified than I am for what they put on that paper,
Yeah.
for what they put on that job description. It's just not going to happen. And so yeah, so I got the position. But even my first, so I've had three different positions at this company at this point. I've been working for them for almost 14 years now. And when I first hopped on, the timing was impeccable. I got so I originally got passed over for the position that I first got. They had hired someone else, and they didn't show up on their first day.
Oh.
And
Oh.
so they called me and they were like, you still want that job? And so they called me on a Monday, asked me if I wanted the job. I'm like, okay, can I have 24 hours to think about it? They're like, yeah. And so I call them back and I'm like, is there any room to negotiate the salary or anything? They're like, no, it's either take it or leave it. I'm like, all right, well, I'll take it. So they called me on Monday. I graduated college on Friday, and they paid for a moving company to come pack us up
Oh wow.
and move all of our stuff on Saturday. And we had actually already had a moving truck ready. We were already planning on moving from where we were because we were living in a college town.
Sure.
So I didn't have a job lined up or anything. Uh, and so they paid for a moving company. They paid for our flights out there. They paid to ship our car out here. It's because we were moving from Idaho to Tennessee.
Okay.
And then in addition to that, they gave us a $5,000 moving expenses stipend for temporary housing and things like that. And so we were going to be living with my in-laws, so we didn't have to pay for temporary housing or anything like that. So what we did is I was very blessed in the fact that my wife didn't have any student loans for her bachelor's degree, and I had less than $4,000 in student loans from my time. This is a story for another time, but I showed up to college with $50 in my bank account, and so
Mhm.
that first year I took out student loans, and I didn't have to take any more. But so I with those moving expenses though, we paid off my student loans, and we had no student loan debt within a month of being done with
Oh,
college.
that's
So
fantastic.
super blessed in that regard. But they bait and switched me on the on the job, because what I applied for was a C++ programming position.
Okay.
In my nearly 14 years of this company, I have never written a single line of C++ code ever. Um,
Phenomenal.
yeah. They brought me in as a mainframe developer, writing
Okay.
writing JCL and COBOL and stuff that's, you know, my father-in-law who's in his 60s did COBOL in college.
Right.
Like uh there's not a whole lot of people who do that these days.
No, not really.
And that's why they bait and switched me, because they couldn't find anybody to, to fill the role. And I went when I remember when I during the job interview, they asked me some questions about the mainframe and about Java. And I was like, this is a C++ position. What? My first thing was like, what's a mainframe? Um, but yeah, so and I had a little bit of experience with Java at that point, and so yeah, they bait and switched me. But even with that, we were incredibly blessed to get for the timing to happen when it did. It saved us all those moving costs. We got the bonus, and I had a job that
Yeah.
because we were fixing to move here to Tennessee anyway, and we were going to live with my in-laws, and we were going to try to figure out where we were going to live after that, or what we were going to do. So it was a blessing, and sometimes you just gotta take those opportunities when they come, even if
Yep.
I mean, when you don't have a job and you got to be like, okay, I need work. But then there's instances like you and I have been talking about when you have a job already and you're looking for something better, and you can take your time and be more selective, and you can have that mentality of I'm I may be interviewing with you, but you're also interviewing with
Yes.
me.
Yeah,
That
and understanding your worth and going into things with that kind of a mindset is super helpful, right? Because you're right. Like you're interviewing for them because you're going to be spending a bunch of time there, and it's important, I think. So yeah, I agree with that.
yeah, well, and equally important to the job itself is the company culture, in my
Yep.
opinion.
Oh yeah.
If not a little bit more so than the job itself, because I've worked with terrible bosses, and it is night and day. I've had, and I've talked about this some on the show, where I had a position that it was going swimmingly, going great, and our manager left. We got a new manager, and the new manager sucked, and he hated me. Like
Mm.
I found out afterwards that he tried to get me fired, and my team lead went over his head to our director and said, "Yeah, no, we're not getting rid of Joe. It's not happening." And
I've had very similar.
and so it makes such a night and day difference when your leadership changes like that, because the culture shifts so much with leadership. And yeah, so yeah,
Yeah.
when you're interviewing, it's not just the job. Make sure you ask, because they inevitably ask, do you have any questions for us? Ask about the culture
Hmm.
of the job. Ask about how much they respect work life balance, and ask these questions. You need to
Ask
find
about
out.
turnover.
Yeah.
You know, how long does your average person stay? Like in depending on the department, that can vary wildly. And sure, like something like sales is going to have a higher turnover at any company. That typically happens. But like there's people at my company that have been working there 20 years or more.
Yep.
And some, so yeah, I'm with you. Definitely always ask those questions.
Yep. Well, and I don't know if this still works, but for a while there, as a small tip, for a while there, what people had recommended to me on my resume is fill out the resume, but then at the very bottom in white, so that it's not noticeable, and make it, super super tiny. Put in buzzwords, because they are filtering a lot of these resumes through AI, and if specific buzzwords aren't found, even if you qualify, even if you're fully qualified, but you didn't use a specific buzzword, the AI will filter you out. And so I've heard a lot of people will put that at the bottom of the resume, some of those buzzwords, um, because just to make sure they get past the AI filters,
The
because
fact
people are,
that
are feeding them through that.
Yeah, the fact that we have to do search engine optimization for resumes now is we're truly living in the worst timeline. let's be real. Like
Yep.
that is just some awful stuff, but it's true, and it's sadly a good tip um, to do.
Yep. Yep. And
Madness.
I've for years and years and years, I kept my resume to a single sheet,
Hmm.
and I don't anymore. If they're not going to scan through it, I do keep it to two sheets still, but I'm just like, I've got enough experience to warrant two sheets, people. And so
Yeah,
yeah, and it's just like, Mm. There's stuff that I've dropped off my resume that I used to involve just because I didn't have more to put on there. Like I used to put on there my when I first applied for this position, I had my Burger King experience on my resume when I first applied for this company because
Sure.
I didn't have professional experience. But then you have to be creative with how you express those things. Talk about skills that you learned that are relevant to the workplace in general.
Oh yeah.
So, like working at Burger King, I learned how to have much better interpersonal skills dealing with difficult personalities and things,
Yeah.
spin it in such a way that it's relative to what you're doing. And so you'll also notice that most positions will include these are the musts and these are the things that we would like.
Yep.
And so oftentimes, especially if it's one that you really want, you'll need to have several different copies of your resume so that it's tailored to specific positions.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. Absolutely.
because they want you to emphasize the things that they are putting in the job description.
Hmm.
So, but do you have any other nodes of wisdom, nuggets of wisdom for to help people looking for jobs?
I mean, the biggest one I think is no, pardon me. Know yourself. Like try to be as confident in yourself as you can be. Don't without coming across as arrogant, but be confident in yourself and know yourself enough to, like you said earlier, be able to go into an interview realizing you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. And it's hard to do because you can be in that position where you're like, I'm desperate for a job. I just need to keep food on the table. Okay. That's a totally different situation. But if you're looking for gainful employment, really understand yourself and what are you looking to get out of this job? Is this just going to be punching a clock, work in the factory, and then you're going to do stuff outside of that? Or is this going to be a thing that you can use skills that you enjoy and enrich? So are you looking for a job? Are you looking for a career type of thing? I know that's kind of cliched, but it's really true.
Yeah.
Like there are jobs and there are career things that you enjoy doing. And try to understand what it is you're looking for at that point. What do you need out of this?
Yep. Well, and just like I said, you need to be getting a vibe check for their work culture.
Mhm.
A lot of times they're trying to get a vibe check from you as well.
Oh yeah.
To see if you'll mesh with their culture. And actually, my current position, they blatantly told me that when they reached out to my previous team, it was for vibe check. It wasn't for qualification. They were trying to see how well I would mesh with their team. It just so happened that they knew personally several of the people from my previous team, and so I immediately passed the vibe check there. Um, and so yeah, finding those connections can be great. One thing that I don't know the answer to, and I'm curious, and you might not know the answer either, but at the end of every job application, there is the voluntary self-identification things.
Mhm.
What is the best scenario for filling that out? Because it asks for race, gender, um, veteran status, and disability, and things of that nature.
Mhm.
What do you think is the best way to fill that out?
Whatever you are comfortable with and who you feel you are. So if for you those things are not anything that is anyone else's business, you can absolutely do the, not applicable or prefer not to disclose or whatever. Um, a lot of that is kind of holdovers from sort of old hiring practices, and they just got to tick the boxes of yes, we tried,
Yeah.
yes, we accepted these applications, that kind of stuff. But I always just put down like, I'm straight white male with no veteran status. That's just who I am, and that's what you're getting. But if for you that is a thing that just doesn't matter and you don't think it should matter, go that route. But because the end of the day, you mentioned it with they're running all these resumes through AI and they're looking for the buzzwords, and they're a lot of these big companies are taking and cross-referencing the names with all sorts of algorithms, and all of that is happening anyway. So just be who you are at the end of the day, and whatever is important to you. And if they don't like that, if you voluntarily saying, I'd prefer not to answer is the thing that pushes them away, then that's not the job for you.
Yeah.
And that's not the place you want to be. Go on.
Yeah, because I have applied. So I had a friend who he's actually he's job hopped a couple of times since then. But 4 or 5 years ago when I was looking for a new job, he said, "Oh, apply with us." And so I applied at his job, and a month or two went by and I didn't hear anything. So I followed up with him like, "Hey, did you hear anything internally? Did they just pass me up and just not say anything?" So he asked, and his manager blatantly said, "Yeah, we're not hiring white guys right now." And obviously it's a hearsay situation. But if that had been documented, that would be very much a lawsuit waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Because that is very much not allowed. But it happens, and so that's why ever since then, I don't know. I've been a little gun shy about those last questions, and so most of the time I put prefer not to answer, and then other than the disability and the veteran status, I'm like, yeah, no, I don't have a disability and I'm not a veteran, because I never want to misrepresent having military service ever.
Absolutely.
That is not what I want to do, and so regardless of what they have there, I'm just like, nope, I am not. But yeah,
yep.
I don't know what the correct answer is, and I guess I would need to talk to somebody and it's going to vary company to company on how they view those, because they're not supposed to use those to determine who they're hiring.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't say it's not going to be there,
right? Yeah.
So
and again, it just kind of comes back to like, I do honestly believe you're going to end up where you're supposed to be at some point. So if that's a deal breaker for them, then it's a deal breaker for you, and you don't want to be there anyway. You don't need that in your life, and you can find something else. You will find something. It's a question of when and how much work you're going to put in, and if you're in the right spot at the right time.
Yep. Well, this has been awesome. If you're in the job hunt, best of luck to you. May the odds be ever in your favor.
Yes.